Peace and blessings, and welcome back to the Heritage Hip Hop Podcast. This episode is brought to you by heritagehiphop.com. We are more than music. We introduce your future favorite artists to you today while celebrating and giving flowers to the artists that help build not only the hip hop culture, but our love for the culture as well. To support, follow us at www.heritagehiphop.com. All members get special benefits, which are early access to our interviews, podcasts, music, and special playlists that are only available exclusively at heritagehiphop.com. We are also sponsored by Transparent Credit Repair, the superheroes of the financial literacy and credit repair world. Change your life in 15 seconds by going to heritagehiphop.com and clicking on the link to Transparent Credit Repair. By filling out the link, you get 20% off of all services rendered from Transparent Credit Repair that go through our Heritage Hip Hop website. So please go to heritagehiphop.com, click on the link for Transparent Credit Repair, and fill out the information. Those 15 seconds would change your life, and you will open your wallet to more income instead of paying out more debt. On this episode of the Heritage Hip Hop Podcast, we talked to Michael Matthews. He is the owner of Digital Radio Tracker. And for anybody that does music, this is the interview you should really pay attention to, because it's not only about getting your music heard, but about the market and the appreciation of creating something that is heard and that other people enjoy, and getting proof of it as well. Many people don't get proof, and many people don't know if they're being heard. They just look for the streams. Well, here it's about more than streams, but definitely at the heart of being a creator, and that is being appreciated. Stay tuned and follow this interview, and I'll come back with the rest of my commentary when it's over. Peace and blessings, and welcome back to the Heritage Hip Hop Podcast, where we introduce your future favorite artists to you today. But today, we are talking to somebody who not only helps artists be heard, but he helps the artists track how they're being heard and listened to at the same time. Introduce yourself to the people, please.
Hey, Trev. Thanks for having me. My name is Michael Matthews. I'm the founder of Digital Radio Tracker .com Incorporated, DRT for short. And what we do is we monitor more than 5,000 radio stations around the world, predominantly targeting and focusing on independent artists and labels and giving them the information that they need to be able to monetize and build their brand globally. So it's exciting to be on the call tonight and being able to share a little bit about who we are, what we do, and how we add value to the music industry, and what we can do to help your listeners be able to really get a hold and really grasp this thing and be able to take their careers to another level.
And that's the key. I believe you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, so I do a lot of research. We're in the age of information, and with so much information at your whim, it's hard not to learn things. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. No, information is everything. You know, one of the things that we pride ourselves on at Digital Radio Tracker is we're not just about information, we're also entertainment, we're also technology. So we're really kind of got the big three wrapped up in one. And that's really what the key is, especially, we've all gone through this pandemic. These times have really changed the landscape of how we think and who we are, and how we market ourselves as artists, or how we brand ourselves as independent labels. So it's a lot of things that we're now understanding that, before the pandemic, everybody was, busy, right? Everybody's coming and going and on tour and out in the streets and promoting their music. And then all of a sudden we get hit by this pandemic, and now everybody's locking into information. Everybody's online. We've seen a surge in digital radio streams especially. So it's not like people have been, sitting in cars and traffic on the freeway and tuning into FM. Is they're saying, hey, wait a minute. We're at home. We're on our cell phones. We're on our devices, behind our computers, and we're able to tune in to digital streaming stations and just see exactly how great of an impact they're making on artists' career. A lot of people don't even realize the amount of new talent, new artists that's being discovered online now. It's incredible. So that's one of the things that DRT brings to the table, is we help bring light to a lot of this new talent that's been cultivated really more from an online perspective. They don't have the politics that the normal terrestrial FM and the stations that everybody's used to, so therefore they have the freedom to be able to play a lot of the music that we all love.
And with the changing of the guard to information and music on a high level, I think it's very important that the new artists and even the veteran artists understand that you have to know the game and how it's changed technologically, especially as the industry evolves. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, most definitely. That's all we're about here. I founded DRT in 2011. What a lot of people didn't even realize, I mean, just think about what I'm about to tell you. Did you really think you were going to be consuming music from a refrigerator, from smart speakers? I mean, now you have more than 150 million cars on the road, late model cars that don't even have CD players in it. They all have internet radio or digital radio. So that in itself just shows from what you're talking about, the technology, how much things have changed in just a short period of time. We can only imagine where it's going in another 10 years. So it's very vital. It's important that we start looking at these types of devices and we start looking at the way music is now consumed and saying, hey, wait a minute, who's monitoring that? Well, digital radio trackers monitoring that. We're monitoring stations that are streaming in cars. We're monitoring stations that are streaming on the refrigerators and smart speakers and on the airplanes and different places like that where now we're able to give them a voice, because before nobody knew. Nobody knew what music was being played on these devices. Nobody knew what was really happening. Was it new artists being played? Was it established artists? Was it a combination of both? Or what? So that's where this information has become key and vital, combined with the technology of today, to be able to help perpetuate some of these new careers that without it, it would be impossible. You wouldn't even know. A lot of people don't even realize that a lot of music from even here in America, and we use the streaming analytics all the time from Apple Music and Spotify, some of the biggest streaming hubs in the world. If you really look at your analytics, 85-90% of your streams is coming from overseas. It's not even coming from here in America. So what does that tell us? That tells us that these analytics are vitally important for launching careers, for being able to monetize, whether it be doing shows, whether it be setting up interviews, whether it be selling merchandise, growing their fan base. So it's key that you get that information from Digital Radio Tracker, being able to know that, hey, wait a minute, in order to reach that audience that's streaming my music in China and Japan, Korea, Australia, overseas in Europe, you first have to know that your music may be getting played over there. That's one of the greatest ways to impact. A lot of people look at social media as another way, but digital radio is an ultimate way to do it, because there's listeners listening to these stations from all around the world. So what are they doing? They discover new talent, then they go on these streaming sites and say, hey, let me go on the Spotify, let me go on the Apple Music, let me start streaming some of these other songs because I like what I've been hearing. So we found that new music discovery has been really growing exponentially with digital radio. So these are things that a lot of artists aren't quite paying attention to, because they're so focused and they've been trained for so long to just focus on the regular terrestrial FM. And we love them, don't get us wrong. It's that, but there's a whole other audience now that has come in the generations that have come up. Now they're saying, hey, wait a minute, what about us? So digital radio is becoming more and more vital by the day. We've seen it just grow firsthand in just the 10 years that DRT has existed. We've seen hundreds and hundreds of stations formed a week. So it's growing dramatically, whereas you've seen a lot more of the terrestrial FM closing their doors. So it's something to think about.
Yeah, you also, by having that type of format or digital format, you're able to not have to rely on the terrestrial radio rules as much. You know, that people can not only be outside of the broad base and hear your music, you can be found by accident. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And you can make it pay off.
Sure. We've witnessed, not to interject something, but there's been several artists that have gotten record deals because they've been on the digital radio tracker charts. There's a lot of major label scouts. There's a lot of lawyers. There's a lot of industry professionals that comb through the charts week in and week out. And naturally they're looking and saying, well, who is this? Number one this week is XYZ artist. Well, I've never heard of them. What makes them so special? How are they garnering so much airplay? And then they'll click on that Apple Music or Spotify link next to it, and they'll start listening to some of the other music that the artists have and say, hey, wait a minute, let's call their manager, let's call their agent, let's see, learn a little bit more about what they have going on. So we've also set ourselves up as playing a key role in new music discovery just from our charts.
Yeah, I want to answer. I wanted to put some theory and some things out there so you can talk more about your business progressively than just as a state of matter of fact, you know?
Okay.
700 songs come out per day. Period. That's a lot of music, and nobody's going to listen to 700 songs. When the artist signs up for Digital Radio Tracker, how does one of those 700 stand out amongst those who are just dropping music?
That's an excellent question. Well, for us, we're monitoring over 5,000 stations around the globe. We're looking at actually expanding that to closer to 8,000 by the end of this year. What that means significantly is, of course, obviously, the more stations that are monitored is the more opportunity for those artists that you're referring to shine amongst one another. One of the biggest ways they separate themselves is, of course, the charts. How the charts are compiled from a panel of stations from week in to week out based upon how many times they're playing a particular song in rankings. So what would make that artist stand out is they would want to secure their airplay on as many stations as possible. So, of course, the more stations that are playing and supporting a song, the greater chances of it hitting the charts, therefore separating themselves from all the other songs that are being released. Because you're right, there's hundreds and hundreds of songs being released daily. So how does one stand out? Well, the big thing, we always say it like this. You want to have a good song. There's nothing wrong with having a great song, but you want to have a good song with great marketing. Because if no one is hearing your song, then it's just basically you and your immediate circle of people that are only enjoying that good song. But when you have great marketing on that good song, now you've reached beyond your circle, and now many others are being able to be impacted. And I'll give you a good example of that. I just recently, again, I discovered it from the DRT charts. This week we had a new artist entered called Masked Wolf. I don't know if you've heard of this artist yet. Just debuted on the DRT charts this past week. Well, they happen to be signed to a major label, Elektra Records. Well, we didn't know anything about this artist, but what did everybody run and do? Let's go check this song out. Let's hear what this song's about. The song's called Astronaut. Let's hear what this song is about. And it's a great song, and we go to research it. It's doing very well. And this is an artist that no one's ever heard of. It's a brand new artist that's been debuted. The song is very, very strong. It's very infectious. When you hear it, you start gravitating to it because it has a lot of elements from other artists that you do like, although it's from a new artist that you've never heard of. And so that song just debuted on the charts, and that's how we found out about it. So that goes to prove my point that you never know who the next thing is going to be. So you heard it first on this call, Masked Wolf. That's an artist to watch. And let's see how his career grows in the coming weeks and coming months. And we may be surprised. Maybe that's the next platinum artist. Maybe we'll be surprised next diamond artist. Maybe we'll be surprised that might be the next artist to go number one. So time will tell, but it starts with good music. So even as a new artist, when nobody's heard of you before, if you're not putting out good music, you don't have a chance of standing out from the rest.
That's a good point. I want to ask you, as far as technology goes, how Digital Radio Tracker is going to change the world. It said that video killed the radio star and streaming killed the physical music. And now digital is setting the trend for the consuming of the consuming of entertainment culture. If that's true, how is Digital Radio Tracker setting the plate so that music can be consumed and appreciated instead of just being ran through and just listened to?
That's a great question. I think one of the things that Digital Radio Tracker is really at the core forefront of, and that's information. That's just literally being able to know where your song is being played at. Literally knowing what, for example, if your song is being played in Germany, you didn't know it until you got a DRT report. Now you see that your song is being played in Germany. What can you maybe do? Set up shows in Germany outside this pandemic, of course. Maybe you can go do tours in Germany. Maybe you can set up interviews. Maybe you can go and sell merchandise to that particular audience over there. Now you have more of a target market to focus in your marketing plan and saying, hey, wait a minute. Instead of running Facebook ads or Instagram ads and so forth for maybe the the Northeast region of the United States, you say, wait a minute, we have fans that are growing over there in Germany. Let's do more targeted ads for that territory. Now your dollars are being able to make more sense with what you're doing. So we call it go where you love, don't go where you hate it and try to make them love you. You can't buy love. So you don't want to go and say, okay, well, look, I'm going to make New York love me, so I'm going to spend all my money marketing in New York when everybody in Germany is feeling you. So why not go and grow that fan base? Why not go and tap into where that support is and be able to expand it? So the key to doing that is getting the right information, is being able to know. The other key is the flip side of that. What if you're not getting any airplay? One of the things that we've started noticing people do, because we do post on Digital Radio Tracker's website. As a matter of fact, I'll give you an exclusive. We're about to launch a new website in 2 weeks, and it's going to be an enhanced experience website, something very, very different. And one of the things that we started noticing people do is they'll go on our website and they'll see stations that we monitor, and they'll start sending their music to those stations. They'll start building their own list, and they'll start targeting a lot of these monitored stations, and a lot of them are willing to support new and developing artists, but you've got to be willing to do the legwork. And so when they started sending that music out to them, they started finding, well, the few stations pick up and start playing it because they've got good music. So now it works on the reverse side. Now DRT is playing a different kind of a role. Now we're providing you with information to help you get access. So one aspect that DRT reports can be used in is research. For example, say you're a particular hip-hop artist, you're very similar to a Chance the Rapper. Well, you can get a DRT report on Chance the Rapper, and you can see the stations that are playing his music. What's more likely that's going to happen? They would play your music as well because you have a similar feel or sound and so forth. So by having that information from DRT, that also gives you one step ahead advantage. So now you're able to then go in and try to market your music to now a database and maybe stations that you didn't even know, you weren't even familiar. I explained to someone the other day, I said, there's a station called Tokyo Country in Japan that plays country music from here in America. They didn't even know about it, never heard of it in life, but discovered it via Digital Radio Tracker. So there's a lot of things that DRT is doing to help expose brands, to help people be able to expand their reach and grow their fan base. So that's the key and one of the things that we offer in terms of artists here.
That's amazing, because music has such a big outreach that, yeah, music goes anywhere. I mean, the first thing that ever was introduced into life by a person or to a person is music. Pardon me, because whether you believe in the theory of wombs and babies and everything, that waterbed accentuates the sound of your mom's heartbeat. So that's how you grow a connection to it, through the rhythm of life. That's all music. Mm-hmm. And with understanding how music is worldwide, I want to ask you this. It's a theory question. Digital Radio Tracker is like a basketball player having the rule book in his hand while he plays, correct?
That's a great way of looking at it. It's not just having the rule book, it's also having the playbook, because we know that's two different things, right?
Right.
So if you have the rule book and the playbook, you can then begin to execute the plays, and therefore you have a greater chance of winning.
Digital Radio Tracker is the cheat code, basically.
Yeah, that's a unique way of putting it. We like to consider us, in a form of a cheat code, that we're the advantage, that we give you the leg up. We like to say it like this: DRT, we're competition to no one, value for everyone. You know, we're not in the game to put anybody out of business. We don't really have any competition. We're in a space lane of our own. and we love it. What we're doing is we're creating our own niche, and we're saying, hey, wait a minute. This is a global music industry that we're in now. Remember about 15, 20 years ago, not sure how long you've been in the business, but a lot of people used to market records differently. They used to focus on what we call their backyard, right? A 500-mile radius here. That's all you used to hear. Well, can you get your record buzzing in the Jersey area, Atlantic City, and so forth, right? And grow from there. Who's talking about that now? We're in a global music industry now. Now listen to what we've been talking about. Germany, Japan. We hadn't even really talked about United States. And we're both based here in America. See, that's how we have to think. Many of your listeners, that's one of the best advice I can give the artists that are listening right now, is learn to start thinking globally. We are now in a global industry, just like we're in a single-driven industry. If you notice, there's not very many mixtapes anymore. There's not many albums anymore in that sense. Albums still come out, but it's singles first. We're in a single-oriented industry.
Yes.
So look at how much has changed. Well, there's a lot of people, that want to take credit for it, but we're in a single-oriented industry. So understanding that when you put single-oriented with global, why are you in the studio cutting 50 songs that nobody's hearing? It makes no sense. You've got to focus on building your brand. Exactly. It's all about marketing. Mm-hmm.
Right. Because, this is what I like about Digital Radio Tracker that most people probably don't catch. I'm from New Jersey, and we have our own understanding of the New York market and the New Jersey market, and why there isn't a New Jersey market because of the New York, let's just say, the cloud of New York that's over the tri-state area, Mm-hmm. And for New Jersey and Connecticut, I think your platform is essential because when you come from New York, you're in somebody's backyard, and all the companies are already there. But if you're from New Jersey and Connecticut, people would scratch their head like, who is hot in New Jersey? Or who is hot in Connecticut when New York has everything in their backyard? So being from New Jersey, Connecticut, even Delaware. Let's talk about Delaware. When you talk about those territories, now you can, as an artist, can form relationships with people in your backyard and use Digital Radio Tracker to not only show value of your work, but you can also create a demand for your work as well.
Exactly. It's the same thing as saying, would you want to be a big fish in a little pond or a little fish in a big pond? And that's exactly what you just laid out there. There's so many people that think, hey, in order to get discovered, I got to go to New York. I got to break out in New York. I got to break out in PA. It's not that. It's you can break out right where you're at. That's the beautiful thing about DRT. That's the beautiful thing about the global music industry that we're in. Nobody's asking. Think about it. Last song that you streamed, did you ask, where's this artist from? It didn't matter. I just mentioned an artist named Mass Wolf. I couldn't tell you where he's from. The song is jamming. It's hot. We're feeling it. So you want to explore more. That's the joy of music. And that's what we see the industry going back to, is going back to the music. It starts with the music at the beginning of the day, and it ends with the music at the end of the day. So it's got to be more of a changing the way that we're thinking, which will change the way we market. And that's what a lot of the independent artists and a lot of the independent labels out here are missing. That's that missing link. And they wonder why, why am I struggling with this thing? I've been trying to get my career off the ground for the last 10 years. Well, what do they say, right? You can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. You got to try something new, something fresh. You got to do something different. And therefore you will get a different result. So that's one of the things that DRT is about. We're trying to add value to the industry and say, hey, wait a minute. You know what? We want you to look at things differently because we're giving you a different kind of information. So in other words, instead of you seeing a report that says, hey, I'm being played on Hot 97 in New York and I'm being played on 99 Jams in Miami, you're now seeing a report that says, hey, I'm being played in Japan, in Australia, in Spain, in Barcelona, in Switzerland, as well as Hot 97 and 99 Jams in Miami. You see the difference? So now you're able to see a different kind of picture that then moves you in a different kind of way with your marketing.
I have two questions for you because this is going to come to the heart of the artist. The first question is, how do I know a radio station is registered with Digital Radio Tracker so I can send my music there and see if it will be picked up?
It's a great question. Well, it's two ways you can do it. One of the things Digital Radio Tracker offers, we're the only company in the world that offers a free searchable database. Everyone else charges to access their database. We don't. So you can simply go on our site, digitalradiotracker.com, form a DRT account completely for free. You log into that account on our platform dashboard, and you can simply click the Search DRT tab, and you can put XYZ station in, and you're going to be able to see whether we monitor or not. That's one way. You can also go on to the station monitored tab. You can be able to select what genre of music, or if you're looking for hip hop, or you're looking for pop, or you're looking for rock or country, and you'll be able to see a panel of stations listed. So now, therefore, you have that information for free at your disposal that you can then go and backtrack and start marketing your music to.
With the age of technology taking over how music is consumed, music is not only played on radio. Do you monitor music that's played? Is it possible to monitor music that's played through the apps like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, etc.?
Yes, it is. There's companies that are already monitoring. That's one of the reasons why we elected not to do that. So we don't do like the video channels and things like YouTube, like Vivo, like TikTok and those types of things, other apps and stuff. But yes, there are companies that do monitor the streams and things and activities that are happening. Typically that falls on what's called like the retail side of things. Remember back in the day we had more of what, we don't talk about it these days anymore, the brick and mortar retail store, right? We used to go in and buy CDs and cassettes and vinyl and so forth. Well, nobody really talks about the record store anymore. Like, what's that? You know, it makes you sound like you're 100 years old, right? Well, now it's online, right? So you have online streaming stores like Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Tidal, etc. Okay, well, in extension to that, you also have the social media streams, whether it be like a YouTube and Vivo and those types of activities. You're going to get those reports from your distributor. So your music distributor is going to give you all of those streaming and all of that data. So therefore DRT doesn't have to. What DRT is doing is focusing on the radio aspect, especially the digital radio aspect, and be able to be a supportive tool in addition to your report from your distributor, so it can be a feeding system, push and pull one or the other.
Since you started this company, I want to ask you a question that I've been arguing with people about for many years that is common sense to me and probably to them, but we just probably say the same thing different ways. I believe all music is consumed differently, even though it all goes into the same place. How have you seen music be consumed through your tracking?
Well, there's several ways. I mean, I kind of spoke about it earlier. One of the biggest ways is what we call new music discovery. Our new music discovery at DRT is predominantly found from our charts. So a lot of people go on the DRT charts every week, and they're able to see different artists that are ranked. We have an independent chart. We also have a big board top 200 and so forth, where people can go in and they can see what artists are on the charts. And they can click that Apple Music and Spotify link right next to it and be able to discover more about that artist if they want to learn. So that's really a big role in what we play, because our charts go all throughout the industry. So you're talking all the major labels, all the distributors, all the radio promotion guys, a lot of artists, and so forth are basically pushing, pulling from those charts. Let me give you an example. There may be an artist, say you're an artist that's on the DRT charts and you're number 5. Well, you might take a snapshot of that and you may post it on your social media, right? Now it's on your Instagram and your Facebook. But what will you also capture in that picture? Artists that are around you. So now if someone sees you at number 5, but they might notice another artist at number 4. They say, well, who's that? You know, and then they Google, go on YouTube, or they go on Spotify and they search for that artist. There's a reason why there's searches on every single system out here. It's because everybody's using it for discovering new talent. So DRT is playing a role more on the front lines of new music discovery, because now everyone's saying, hey, wait a minute, is Mass Wolf the next Eminem? We don't know that. The next G-Eazy? We don't know that. But how did we hear about this guy? Well, his song debuted in the top 200 DRT charts this week. But we never heard of him before. We never seen him before. And so now you've got people checking them out, seeing, exploring. Because why? Because of the nature of people. Who wants to be left out, right? Who wants to, well, I've never heard of Cardi B. Who's that, right? I've never heard of Nicki Minaj. Who's that? You don't want to do that, right? Even if you're not a fan of them, you want to be familiar with them. You want to be aware, right? Especially if you're in the in crowd. You want to know. So if the next one up is a masked wolf, you don't want to be that odd man out. Say, I've never heard of that artist before. So that's usually what happens in the beginning when careers are growing, when they're marketed properly. It's a big word of mouth thing. That's always going to be the best advertising, right? Is word of mouth. Because like you've heard me say Masked Wolf several times on this call. I don't manage that artist. I don't work with that artist. It has nothing, I'm not connected with that artist whatsoever. But just the fact that we're having a conversation here, and I mentioned maybe some of your listeners that hear this, they start Googling Masked Wolf. Let me see who this guy is he's talking about. That's how music gets discovered. Just from people talking about it. It's a beautiful thing. So our charts perpetuate that movement. Another angle is we also have what's called the DRT certified plaques. And we wanted to give back to the industry at large and say, hey, wait a minute. You know, there's a lot of artists out here that'll never get a Grammy, that'll never get a Billboard award, that'll never get a Spotify billion stream award or anything like that. You know, we created the DRT certified plaques because we wanted that new and developing artist especially, or that label, to begin to start getting some acknowledgement for their work. They are somebody as well. That it's a stepping stone. So, you know what? So many artists have gotten these plaques and they said, hey, wait a minute. Man, this is our Grammy. This is our Billboard award. We'll take it. Nothing against those guys at all. But when you have something you can embrace, in other words, some of these artists, how many Grammys do they have? How many Billboard plaques do they have on the wall? 99.9% of them is going to say 0.
Right.
But they have an opportunity to get a DRT plaque on their wall. So it creates a whole different thing. And why I brought that up that much more is because there's 10 slots on every plaque. So what happens is that when you have a plaque for XYZ artists, there's also 9 other artists that are being advertised on that plaque. It's in studios. It's in radio stations. It's in record companies. It's in individual homes. You don't know who can see it. So that's another way that music is discovered. One of the things that we also do with our DRT plaques is we're the only company in the world. No other plaque, the RIAA, Billboard, Spotify, Apple, no other plaque in the world does what DRT plaques do. We're the only plaque that uses augmented reality technology. We put your video in the plaque. We make it cool. So just imagine you got a DRT plaque on your wall, you pull your device out, a tablet, a phone, you scan the plaque and it starts playing your video on it. How cool is that? That's an awesome conversation piece. What we just did was elevate your marketing to a whole nother level. That's why you have artists posting on social media holding up their DRT plaques, and some of them have done it. Like Smooth B from Nice and Smooth back in the day. He did it. He posted let me show you something. He pulled his phone out. This is cool. This is technology. This is innovation. That's what DRT is doing, is we're exposing people to things. Like a lot of people have never even heard of AR tech. Now, what's augmented reality? Well, let me show you. It's where you take something that is physically in front of you, and so that's your reality, and you actually implement something within it, like a video. And so it's something cool, and that's what we wanted to bring to the industry. We wanted to bring innovation to the industry and say, wait a minute, DRT is not just a monitoring company. We're also doing things to make our artists stand out, to make people feel special. I mentioned to you when we was briefly talking before this call, you know, one of the artists that stood out to me, and I was looking at the Heritage Hip Hop site, was Gabby B, an up-and-coming Brazilian artist that's, you know, who knows? She might be the next Beyonce for all we know. And, well, one of the things I'm proud to say is she got her start on the DRT charts. We were the first charting system that her music was on. So what do you think that does? That gives her more credibility, that gives her more recognition, that allows her to stand out from what were you asking earlier about? A lot of the other artists that are maybe from Brazil that are now here in America trying to thrive to reach their goals and so forth. So something simple as just being on a chart, giving that recognition, being able to do press releases and be able to say, hey, I'm number 50 on a chart, or I'm number 10 on a chart. That separates you from the millions of other artists that are out here that quick. And you never know. Maybe a blog or a magazine may pick up and say, hey, wait a minute. Or Heritage Hip Hop contacts you and say, hey, man, we've got a hot podcast. We'd love to interview on our podcast. These types of things can happen because we've helped you stand out. We've helped you separate from the rest. We've created a platform to give you recognition. So in other words, all love to the Beyoncés of the world and the Cardi B's of the world, but there's a lot of other great talent that deserves a little shine too, don't you think? So that's one of the reasons why we created DRT, was we wanted to, what we call, level the playing field a little bit. Be able to say, hey, wait a minute, there's a lot of undiscovered talent out here that people need to know about. So we're going to create a platform that's going to allow them to be able to stand out from the rest just a little bit. Maybe, not saying they don't have to do any work for it. Sure, you got to put the work in. You've got to get the earplay, but at least you feel like you have a shot. There's some artists that will never make it on the Billboard charts. There's some artists that will never make it on a lot of the other charts that exist. But at least you feel like, you know what? Hey, I have a running shot. This is a stepping stone in my career. As they say, a lot of baby steps can lead to what? Big steps. So that's what we're about here. So that's one of the big ways that we're revolutionizing the industry by bringing innovative things like the video enhanced DRT Flex.
You said a lot in so much time. Wow, I lost my words. I want to congratulate you and commend you because on the Heritage Hip Hop platform, we have our own award show because we know so many people have talent from our home state and they're not really being heard. So even overseas, out of the state, we've given awards to show people, yes, you are being listened to. Yes, you are being heard. And for you to give somebody a plaque, that for them is the physical representation of, yes, I'm not doing this just for me. Somebody acknowledges that.
There you go. Exactly. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, my question is that, I think my question may have came out wrong, but you answered it so eloquently that it goes back to it. As you have music that's digitally being consumed, it's dope if I'm a singer. If I'm I don't even know who's hot right now. Let's just say I'm a singer and I go on DRT and my name is right next to Bruno Mars. That's big. That's right. Because for the Bruno Mars fans, who is that by Bruno Mars? For the people who are not Bruno Mars fans and they see your name, well, who's this? So why is he next to Bruno Mars? You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
It's a very Where's Waldo hide and seek type of thing that when you're found, aha, now I have my opportunity.
That's right.
I want to ask you this though. This is something that came from what you said that really makes me really makes you stand out in a way that other people do not. And that is your business is a networking monument that people are going to see and not only want to know history of it, they're going to really want to know the purpose of it and what you've already eloquently said. How does the culmination of all these stations making your business work, how does the culmination of that get celebrated with DRT itself?
Well, you know, to be frank with you, we're not really looking for any type of praise or any type of recognition for what we do and what we add to the industry. What we wanted to do, and it's something that we saw, a team of us, we saw it in 2011, 10 years ago. We saw a void in the industry. We saw a conversion as the medium changed from CD to MP3 to streaming. We saw things becoming more acceptable from a streaming standpoint. We said, wait a minute, you know, I remember when streaming was a bad word, right? Now, and nobody really, what's that? Now it's used every day. It's become the norm. And we said, well, wait a minute. There's a lot of music being played on digital radio, but nobody wants to track it. Nobody wants to be able to put that information together so managers, artists, labels can monetize it, can make a living from it. Nobody wanted to do it. We checked with all of our friends at all the various monitoring companies. And they said, well, we don't want to do it. You know, we're good at what we do. We're satisfied with just monitoring terrestrial FM. You know, some say, hey, you know what? Nobody's really listening to digital radio. And how we looked at it at the time, we looked at it in a whole different kind of perspective. Because one of the ways that we looked at it is we said, wait a minute. If there's even 1,000 people listening to that station, yes, it's not as many as maybe a Hot 97, but that's 1,000 more people that now heard your song. That's 1,000 more people that can potentially become a fan of Karev. You know, that's 1,000 more people that may be able to go into your store and buy your merchandise. Maybe attend your show. Maybe promote your music further. Whatever it may be. So when you think about it, you got to go through 1,000 to get to 10,000, to get to 100,000, to get to that million goal that you have. Plus, right? So that's what I talked about earlier about the baby steps. So we started looking at that a little differently and saying, hey, wait a minute. These digital streaming stations are starting to grow their audience. I can tell you about several stations that got 15, 20, 30, 40,000 people listening a week now. That's some good numbers. Now multiply that times 20, 30, 40 stations. So now you start reaching actually more people than a Hot 97. And you're reaching people around the world. What did we talk about earlier? Most of your streams are coming from people around the world. So now that local market doesn't seem as viable to you anymore when you look at it like that. And you're saying, hey, wait a minute. I'm trying to reach people around the world. My music is being streamed on these smaller stations, yes. But it's impacting a bigger audience in a different way versus just a local metro market. So there's advantages and disadvantages to all of these things. But that's the viability that we see that DRT adds value because we say, well, wait a minute. We're going to come in and say, let's start looking at some of these guys. There's a lot of music being broke online. A lot. There's a lot of artists that are getting record deals that don't even have any terrestrial airplay. You mentioned like TikTok earlier, other social media platforms that they're getting recognized because of numbers. At the end of the day, we're in a numbers world. So if you have an audience and you're growing your fan base, who really cares where they're coming from, right? If you've got thousands of people streaming your music and buying your merchandise and going to your shows, do you really care if it's from your local market? It doesn't matter. And you have a lot of people, that's why I said they got to change their way of thinking. Because you have some people that are just so stuck in that bubble where they just want to be accepted by their local market so bad that they'll do anything. And we're saying, wait a minute, the rest of the world is loving you, but you're worried about your local market. It's a big pool out here. What do you want to fish in?
Very good, eloquently put. I want to ask you this because I think this is one thing that people don't really focus on when it comes to music, and that's the longevity of music. Your charts go over an 8 to 9 week time period. Why is that?
I'm sorry, you said our charts go 8 to 9 weeks?
I've seen on the website that they have like an 8-week chart it monitored the last 8 or 9 weeks of.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not a chart. Let me break that down to you. What you're referring to is the historical data. Okay. Every company stores a certain amount of data. DRT, we only store the last 8 weeks. So in other words, you can get what's called a historical DRT report, which is going to break down all the stations that are playing your song in the previous 8-week period.
Okay.
That's how that works. That's not a chart. That's just the historical data. Okay? But most people are mainly concerned with who's playing their song this week, which is the current period, or the previous week. So those are the more popular reports. We also have what's called comprehensive reports. DRT comprehensive reports, we're also the only company in the world that breaks down the versions of songs. And let me explain what I mean by that. All the other monitoring companies, they combined all of the versions into one report. So you have no way of knowing, does this house mix, does this version featuring XYZ artist, maybe you have a screwed and chopped version, maybe you have some other type of remix version by a particular DJ. And what will happen is all of those different songs are being played on different radio stations, but you only get one report that shows all of those spins combined. Well, with DRT, you can get what's called a DRT comprehensive report, and it actually breaks down and says, okay, this is the regular version without the feature, this is the version with the feature, this is the remix with the house DJ, this is the remix with this particular artist, and so forth. That's the difference, is that we also understood that people need to know. Think about it. If you spend X amount of dollars for a feature on a song, don't you really want to know, was it worth it? Is anybody playing that version? You know, maybe everyone's playing that version and no one's playing your original version. Well, with those other monitoring companies, you can't tell the difference. You would have no way of knowing. So therefore, you might have just wasted X amount of dollars for that feature and find out that that feature made no impact on your song whatsoever. So these are the things that we looked at Digital Radio Tracker, and we said, how can we be innovative? How can we be different? How can we give the industry something just a little bit more? Fill that void, that missing link that can maybe give you just a little bit more information to break your music. Give you a little bit more information to maybe get that record deal you're looking for. A little bit more information to take your career to another level. That's what we do here at Digital Radio Tracker.
I love it. With music being consumed now on television through ESPN, and we got ESPN radio and all these other things, I think music's value has been cheapened, but it's one of the richest, most productive cultures that the world has, because everybody either hums or everybody wants to sit back and relax. With the mini charts that you have, I love how you have a global top 200, the top 150 independent, top 25. I like how the categories are broken down. And the thing I like about that is one song can be monitored on many categories all at one time.
Sure.
So if a person sees that, not only does it help them in their creative space, but it also gives them a feeling of fruition. They've conquered something, which is not only the fear of being heard, but knowing they have access to many different ears who would like to hear more of them, you know?
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why we created this platform, because we wanted to, and we call it just level the playing field a little bit. You know, for so many years, there's been so much politics. Every industry has politics. We all know that. But for so long in the music industry, there's been so much politics that a lot of great talent simply, they just give up because they can't fight the politics, or they don't have the right network to be able to connect the dots. All of these various things. That's why we said, well, hey, wait a minute. If we're doing an unbiased chart and we're saying, hey, look, we're monitoring these 100 stations and this is what these 100 stations are playing. We don't go through and say, well, that's independent, take that off. Or, you know what, this is on this particular label, so move that up a few slots. We don't do that. So it is possible, it may not happen very often, but it is possible for an independent artist that's not signed to a major label to get on the top 10 of DRT charts with all the major stars that you hear, that you're familiar with. It's possible. We've made it possible. Now, can it happen, or will an artist be able to make that happen? Time will tell that. We have yet to have seen it, but it is possible, because our charts are not comprised of select particular individual stations that basically those handful of stations don't play independent music. So therefore, there will never be independent artists on that chart, if you understand what I'm saying, right? But when you're dealing with an unfiltered chart, now you have an unbiased panel. Nobody really working with anybody else on the panel. So now those particular stations are simply just, this is what they're playing. This is what they're playing. So you know what? It is possible for an artist to get more play than Drake, than Cardi B, than Beyonce, than a Taylor Swift. It is possible if that artist is securing enough airplay so you can be up there right with those greats. Right with those greats. So now it becomes a little bit more of a leveling the playing field. Who's willing to put in the work? That's what it's going to boil down to. And if you're an artist that's listening to this podcast and you're willing to put in the work, trust me, you will get the shine. Because there's another aspect to Digital Radio Tracker and what we do that I didn't mention earlier, is that we track ID3 meta tag data. We do the data stream. So what that means is we're not tracking the radio stations. Well, let me just put it this way so your listeners can understand. We're not tracking songs. We're tracking what the stations play. So therefore, in some cases you have to have your song encoded or fingerprinted and those types of things. Well, think about it. If you don't get your song encoded or fingerprinted, it becomes a blank space, but it was actually aired over the radio. Well, what DRT does is we're tracking radio stations and everything that they play. We're not tracking songs. Songs being tracked is what other monitoring companies do. We're saying, hey, wait a minute. You might have cut a song last night, didn't send it in for encoding, but you sent it and it's being played on a station that DRT monitors. We automatically have a DRT file on your song. So we built our business model similar to the credit bureaus. So just like what happens when you apply for credit for the first time, a file is created, and then every time there's any kind of credit activity, it gets added to that file. DRT works the same exact way. So as soon as your song is played on any of the stations we monitor, we have a file on it. Every time it's played after that, it gets added to that file. It's a beautiful thing. So that was another void that we saw within the music industry, that a lot of spins were being missed. A lot of songs were being played, and these artists had no idea that they had to get their song encoded or fingerprinted. They didn't know where to send it to, but they may have been getting played for a while. Therefore, they're doing what? They're missing out on royalties. So now they're not making the kind of money that they should be making, right? They're also not being able to monetize the information because there is no information to get. So now they don't know where to book shows. They don't know how to set up interviews. They don't have that information to do anything. But with DRT, is we're following you from spin one. So even if it's a song you created in your bedroom last night or your basement the night before, as soon as you release it out, whether you post it up on social media or however you might have sent it to one DJ friend to get some feedback, and you don't know if he turned around and sent it to 100 other DJ friends. You have no way of knowing. Well, with DRT, you do have at least a little advantage on knowing if that song was actually played or not, because you can pull it up for absolutely free. You can go on, like I said earlier, to that Search DRT tab, put your artist name in, and if you don't see it come up, means we don't have a file on you, you're not getting any airplay. If you see it come up, means we got airplay on it. So it's a different kind of system that was created basically to help the little guy in mind.
Well, not only the little guy, because a lot of veteran artists say that through streaming, they're not really getting that recognition of play, and they don't see the influence of their music and what it still has in the industry today. So for an artist like a 50 Cent, a Jadakiss, even a Public Enemy who just released a new album, if their music is getting played on these stations, then they can really see where their market still is and who's really listening to them still in today's moment.
Exactly. So now if Public Enemy is getting a lot of airplay overseas, or Jadakiss is getting a lot of airplay overseas, he's going to do what? Go tour over there. Go sell merchandise. Monetize. Make a living to feed his family. See, it becomes a different thought process. So you no longer have to be focused on, hey man, I'm going to focus on the tri-state and that's it. You don't have to worry about that, because now this information becomes invaluable to you.
I love it. For everybody out there that's listening to this podcast, listen, you have valuable information. And with music not only being consumed or listened to on the radio, on apps, you got radio stations who still look to play your music. This helps you form a relationship not only with your music, but with branding your music to a place that will want to play your music and help you build your representation and your visibility to people who like music that you make as well. So please tell the listeners how they can follow you, get in touch with you, or even register with DRT.
Okay. Well, we'd like everyone to go on digitalradiotracker.com. The old site is up, but like I mentioned earlier, there's a new site coming in the next couple of weeks. But you can go on digitalradiotracker.com, click on the register now. It's completely free to sign up and have your own DRT account and use a lot of the features that we've been talking about tonight. You can also follow us on Instagram at Digital Radio Tracker. So those are the two of the best ways in order to reach out to us and follow us and get engaged with what DRT is doing.
All right, all right. For everybody out there that's listening, we at Heritage Hip Hop don't believe in streaming, though. If you have music out there, make sure you get it out there to any and everybody who wants to play it, but make sure you direct them to buy your music as well. Because streaming is one thing, but you want to connect with your audience and form a long-lasting reciprocal relationship with them. So be sure you touch the audience just as well as much as you want to touch the hands and make relationships with the radio stations as well. You agree with that?
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Before we get off this interview, I would like to play a game that we play with our guests called the Rapid Fire Questions. Are you down to play this game with us?
Sure, why not?
Okay, so the Rapid Fire Questions are not yes/no questions. These are questions that talk about your understanding of music, genre, and what you do in your culture. So are you ready to go?
Okay.
All right. What kind of music do you listen to primarily?
Country.
Oh, even better. Let's go. What song or album perfectly describes you?
Wow. Metallica, the Black Album.
Oh, that's very deep. So you like the riffs. You like the guitar loops. That's what gets you.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's my favorite band, Metallica. Uh-huh.
You have to know music to ask the right questions, ladies and gentlemen. My next question. From doing Digital Radio Tracker, how have you seen how music is consumed differently by genre in different parts of the world?
Man, I've witnessed everything from consuming radio on trains in China to refrigerators here in America to airplanes. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's by genre. I think it has to do with just cultures. It has to do with availability. Obviously, we're all in a pandemic right now, so a lot of people are on their phones and at home, and if they've been quarantined and so forth. So I think a lot of it is just accessibility.
Accessibility. I like that. My next question is this. The music industry is still growing and going far beyond the expectations of the business world's thinking model. And this is what I mean. We now see that record companies are becoming more obsolete with the independent artists. We also see that independent artists who are veterans are now coming up with podcasts and radio shows to sell their music without the industry being in the mix of them selling or creating their music. What do you think with the age of people touching the people, artists touching the people through technology? What do you think is the future of how music is going to be distributed and consumed within the next 5 years?
I think we're going to see a lot of really the same, because it does take a while before technology evolves the way music is delivered. I remember I owned one of the first digital delivery companies of music when MP3s kind of first came out. And we would service, back in the day, we used to stuff CDs in envelopes and mail it to radio stations and so forth. That's how they actually got their music. Well, then when MP3s kind of came to the forefront, we realized you can just simply just click a mouse button and you can send a song to 100 stations in one click. So that just gives an example right there of how technology kind of came in and disrupted the space, from one way of doing it to another. But we're going to see things continue to evolve. What you just said there with artists, what a lot of people need to wake up and realize, music is free. It's all about building your brand. What it's about now is the music industry doesn't make money from music anymore. they make money from the development of the brand and being able to monetize that brand. So that's why you have a lot of artists now. They've got their own lines of makeup. They've got their own lines of alcohol. They've got their own products, all kinds of things going on. Like you mentioned, they're doing podcasts, they're doing streams. Some artists are even becoming DJs. All kinds of different things are going on because everyone's realizing that they got to find a way to make a living doing what they love. They understand that they've got to stay what's called relevant out here. The more relevant you are, the further you can build your brand. As they say, build your network to build your net worth.
I like how you said that. I think the biggest misconception that we have with music is that music is the end all, where we see people use music as a gateway to extend their creativity and business sense. What is the extension of Digital Radio Tracker, and how will you grow that?
I think the core of what digital radio stands for, it's being able to continue the innovation, continue the evolution of evolving talent and exposing talent, and being able to give you the advantage to combat the ultra marketplace that we have out here. It's a very saturated industry that we're in. So like you've been mentioned earlier, it's about how do you separate yourself from the rest? How do you become that standout artist that's going to say, you know what, this is the one, this is the next thing. You know, none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know that. Even with what we do at DRT, with ranking songs every week and having all of this data, we're tracking more than 40 million songs a week now. That's a lot of titles. That's a lot of data, you know, to comb through and sift through and be able to say, hey, wait a minute, who's the next star out of this thing? We know there's somewhere in there, but there's 40 million titles. No one knows where that next hit is going to come from. No one knows who that next big star is going to be. So what we first do is start to shine the light. And as you start shining the light, as they say, when the smoke clears, there's going to be a real fire there. And that's what we're all looking for, that real fire.
Exactly. Real fire. Real music, real feeling, but a real intent on knowing the business and taking care of your brand, not putting anything out on the wall to see what sticks.
That's right.
I salute you. I have about 2 more questions and then we're going to finish out. You work with people that's independent, but you also work with people that's in the industry, like you said about CL Smooth. And I saw on the website you had 50 Cent there. You had Noah Verde, was it? I don't know. I forgot. There's a bunch of people that I've seen on the site, and that's great. My question is, how does the mainstream artist celebrate you like the independent artist celebrate you?
Man, that's a phenomenal question you just asked. I've been honored. I've been very, very blessed. I was on a promotional, what I call a promotional tour, getting the word out about DRT for about a year and a half before the pandemic hit. And one of the things I experienced, and I was traveling all over the country and talking to so many of today's biggest stars. I've had the privilege to meet some of the biggest artists of all times, all the way to some of the new and developing artists. And one of the things that I found that was common about several of the major stars that I've spoken to is they just said, thank you. They just said, thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you do. I couldn't believe it. I was overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed because these are artists that have sold millions and millions of records, and to hear them say that they see value in DRT, that they really appreciate what we're doing, even as a small company, because they get it. For so long, many of these established stars, a lot of people don't know this. A lot of them aren't even privileged to get reports like a DRT report. A lot of them don't even know that they're getting played overseas. I remember one particular artist, I actually showed her DRT report, and she was almost in tears because she was like, I'm being played in Switzerland, Brazil. All of these territories just stood out to her on that paper. As they say, there's nothing like seeing something in front of you, tangible on paper. And she said, thank you for sharing it with me. And there's been so many people that have actually, they've autographed their DRT reports for the office. Or they said, hey, you know what, thank you for what you're doing. So I was just so honored to get that kind of feedback. And I was amazed because here I was just trying to promote DRT, promote our brand, let people know this is what we do. Share. I shared a DRT report with a huge pop star called Billie Eilish. She actually stood and read it with me. She took the time out to literally go through several pages of stations to say, wait a minute, what is going on? Almost as if she's never seen a radio report before. And this is a huge pop star that is selling millions of records. And so it's a lot of things that I learned in doing that was very, very different and very surprising to see these major stars grasp what we're doing and actually appreciate it. So if these artists who are selling millions of records, these artists who have already arrived, as they say, touring all over the world, can take a minute to look at their DRT report or to get an understanding about what it is that we do, just think some of these new and developing artists, what impact getting that type of information can have from their career.
Yes, indeed. With that being said, we come to our last question, and I just want to say it was a pleasure and an honor to talk to you. I love music, period, but I have a special affinity for hip-hop music because of what it represents. I don't really care for the business side of it, but it is a business, and I would like people to be appreciated in many more ways than one, whether it's monetary or to know that somebody is listening to them. And I thank you for making that possible for so many people who don't know they're being heard. So that's my personal thank you to you.
Thank you.
I'll also like to say I'm a businessman myself, and when I interview people, I interview them not just because of who they are or what they do. I also believe in relationships, and I'm putting it out there loud for everybody to hear. Heritage Hip Hop wants a relationship with DRT. Period. We could talk about that later. That's not for everybody else to hear. But I put it out there because it's written in the Bible that, you have to ask to receive. And God, and it said to God, with God, it said, how should I pray? And it said, pray like you're constantly knocking on the door so that the Most High will come like, what do you want? You know what I'm saying?
That's right. There you go. And you will get it.
Exactly.
You will get it.
So I'll put it out there so it could be heard not only one time between us, but for the many times this would be broadcasting, in the future. Maybe something will grow and will be just as vibrant and just as helpful as you are to other people as we could be for each other, So with that being said, you have an open door policy to come on Heritage Hip Hop. If there's anything that you want to market or talk about what you have produced, we would definitely do that because it's not only is it the right thing to do, but you're helping people who we care about and who do what we care about survive and find their purpose. And that's another thing I want to thank you for as well.
Not a problem. And I want to commend you for what you do. In the short period of time that I've gotten to know you and do some research and things on what you're doing at Heritage Hip Hop, I commend you greatly because so many people have a voice like yourself. Doesn't matter how many people are hearing this podcast or how many people will hear it in the future. What it's about is getting information out there, blessing people, being able to help touch lives. And so I commend you for what you're doing, and I want to congratulate you on the success of what you've already had because most people don't do that. They don't congratulate people for what they've done. Most people look at their pockets or most people look at their accolades and determine whether someone's successful or not. How many records have they sold and so forth. Instead of saying, wait a minute, you know what? You've achieved so much success in your own right, and you guys should also celebrate that at Heritage Hip Hop. So I commend what you're doing as well and want to encourage you to keep doing it because it's individuals like yourself that's going to keep hip-hop music alive in everyone's soul, keeping things at the forefront like bringing podcasts like this, education, not just promoting a particular artist, but letting people know, wait a minute, Heritage Hip Hop is also offering vital information to help build careers, to help change lives, to be able to create legacies that Heritage Hip Hop can talk about from today, tomorrow, and forevermore.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate that. So with that being said, the final question is this. Mr. Matthew, you have changed the world to the point where your digital footprint is massive, and it's going to be a legacy movement. And when they go back in, when they go let's just say 500 years in the future, and they have their board meetings, your picture is going to be in the office somewhere as the founder of a juggernaut company that changed lives. My most important question to you on the first interview is this. What is the legacy that you leave behind on the world that made it better because you made Digital Radio Tracker?
Wow. I think for me personally, and I've been in the industry for 28 years, anyone that knows me that knows that I'm not looking for any personal recognition. I'm not looking for any awards. I'm not looking for magazine covers. You know, a lot of people have seen me on over 28 magazine covers. I'm not looking for any of those things. For me, what it's about is lives. It's about being able to make a difference in the careers of entertainers. It's being able to make an impact on an industry that I grew up just loving. For probably about the first 10 years, I didn't make a dime from the industry. I spent millions of dollars of my own money just being able to try to support my brand, being able to help artists, help people, and giving back. You know, that's what it is for me. With DRT, it's about lives. It's about being able to impact the careers and futures of thriving artists that want to be recognized, that want to be heard. And I think that's the biggest thing for us, is knowing that Digital Radio Tracker was created, that we gave a voice to that small station that was in India, or that was in Russia, or that was in parts of Mexico or South Africa, that nobody else in the world wanted to recognize that they even existed. That DRT gave a little voice to that new and developing artist that just wanted to be heard, that wanted to share what they were going through, a message in their song, with an audience, no matter how big it is, that DRT was helping them be able to do that. That's what the big thing for us is that we want to be able to look back on the legacy and say DRT was a voice for the unheard, and therefore there were millions of people around the world being able to now be heard, that without DRT otherwise they would have never been heard.
And with that being said, everybody remember this. It is the Bible says it's the man that can control his spirit that's stronger than the man that can take over a city. We're always driven by what we do and our egos and everything, but a person who can sit back, reflect, and actually look at how he can help others rather than help himself is a man who can control his spirit, who can give back to the world and fortify his legacy as a man, not only with having a good name, but a name that lives on past his own life. DRT will be around for a very long time, and it's good to join up with somebody who believes in you just as you believe in yourself. This is Karev from Heritage Hip Hop, but Mr. Matthews of DRT, DigitalRadioTracker.com, and we say peace, and we out.
Thank you.
Digital Radio Tracker can be the aid that you need, not only to track who is listening to your music, but how to market yourself and promote yourself properly. So please do your due diligence if you really take your music serious, and check out Digital Radio Tracker on all internets and social medias. Please, this is what's going to help propel you to stand out from the others who just create and put music out. Period. With that being said, this is Karev of Heritage Hip Hop, thanking Mr. Matthews for coming on our platform, and we hope to have a very lucrative future with Digital Radio Tracker in the near coming months. By the way, talking about what's coming up next, episode 100 is coming next, and on that episode, the special guest is me. So if any questions you ever want to know about me or Heritage Hip Hop, feel free to send them in on our social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere you find us, and you will get your shout out during the interview. HeritageHipHop.com, Heritage Hip Hop on all social medias sponsors this, and also Transparent Credit Repair, the superheroes of the financial literacy and credit repair world. Like I said, change your life in 15 seconds by filling out the application on HeritageHipHop.com and open your wallet to more income instead of paying out more debt. With that being said, I'd like to give a shout out to everybody who makes this show possible. Shout out to the Heat DJs. Shout out to the Fleet DJs. Shout out to Heritage Hip Hop's own crew, BQ of Fatty's Place, Lex, Firejaws, Michael Bradley, and everybody who supports. Thank you to all of you listeners who are the foundation of what we've built, being the platform that introduces your future favorite artists today, and giving respect to those who've laid the foundation to the culture and for our New Jersey culture worldwide. I'd like to give a shout out to everybody who wants to help build Heritage Hip Hop. So if you want to donate, our Cash App is $Heritage Hip Hop. And if you would like to get some merch, you go to storefrontier.com/Heritage Hip Hop. We thank you and everybody for your contributions and how you've helped make this platform take off. And without you, there would be no Heritage Hip Hop. So besides me saying thank you, I would like to say until episode 100, where we all celebrate as a family. And I say peace, and we out.